right, we are here without the fanfare of the open. I still haven't transferred all of my uh, video materials over to the new computer, so just pretend. Doot, 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 doot. Doot 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 doot. There you go. That's the open. I just recreated it for you. What's happening, everybody? It is Sunday, October 12th. It's Steve Young's birthday. Steve Young, of course, being the great-great-great-great-grandson of Brigham Young, one of the Mormon marauders who plowed his way across the country, if you know what I mean. So usually Sunday night's a pretty good crew, pretty good gang, pretty good number. So we're going to hang out for a little bit and let the masses matriculate in here. Oh, I'm not very good at serenading. I'll tell you a story while we're waiting. This goes back to the alienation of my youth. This is when Chiron in Aquarius, literally Chiron in Aquarius, reared its ugly head in my third house, which is school. And it was 1969. I was at my third school in a year. And these are schools that were separated by large chunks of miles. And this was in Laguna Niguel, which is right next to Laguna Beach. And we moved there probably... I don't know, maybe November of 1969. And I think it might have been the first or second day of me being at this school. And the class had an assembly. All the classes had an assembly. Remember those assemblies when you were a kid? So this assembly, my fourth grade class, plus all the other classes that were in fourth grade, were singing on stage. And they were singing The Fifth Dimension, The Age of Aquarius, and Let the Sunshine In. And I knew the lyrics of those songs. They were on the radio. I used to sing to them. And they had the whole fourth grade class up there. And I told the teacher, I said, I know the words of that song. Really? Well, let me hear you sing it, right? So I'm fucking in the fourth grade and I'm auditioning to sing in a choir. It's like my off-tune little 9-year-old voice is not going to bring the choir down. So I sang the lyrics of the songs, and I probably didn't sound very good. In fact, I probably sounded so bad that the teacher decided to leave me outside and go in and lead the choir. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? How come I can't go up there and sing? Right? It's like one of those, truly, I have Chiron and Aquarius in my third house. And that's when I started to feel just a little bit different than the rest of the kids. So, you know what I should have done? I should have just walked off the school. Looking back on it, I should have just said, fuck this. Who needs this? It was a long ways to walk home, trust me. I had to go up Crown Valley Parkway. It was a big hill. But I should have just done it. I just said, fuck it. Where'd you go? Well, you didn't let me sing. So why should I stick around? In fact, I should never have gone back. I hated that fucking school, to be honest with you. It's like, did I like school in general? No, not really. But that school I didn't like. Let's see. You have Chiron in the third too. Yeah, I was always like the oddball. And I tried at times, I tried to play it straight. Just couldn't do it. Could not do it. And it was like the more I tried to play it straight and kind of do the right thing, fit in, it just didn't work. So I just said, fuck it. I'm not doing that. Fuck this fitting in shit. Who needs it? Hey, we got a Mario sighting. What's up, Mario? I was thinking about you today. I was thinking about you and Libra and all the symbolism that is associated with the sign of Libra, because I'm going to be getting into that tonight, particularly as it relates to one Charlie Kirk. And when you look at him and you look at Erica and you look at sort of this change of season, it's a very interesting take at what happened. Whatever you believe, whatever you believe went down. It has moved the needle. It's moved the needle and more than likely altered the timeline. And who knows how these things happen? We were watching about a 25-minute video on Philip K. Dick today. And Dick talks about this. And Dick talks about how things are changed in the past to alter the present. I used to have the famous speech. Philip K. Dick didn't speak in public very often. And in 1974, he was at a science fiction conference in, of all places, Metz, France. And I say of all places because Metz was the first place I lived in as a child. I was born in Verdun, but only because the hospital in Metz was full. So they had to take my mother to the next town over, Verdun. But my parents were living in Metz. So in 1974, Philip K. Dick gave an address to these science fiction writers where he posits his theory of reality and time. And one of the things that Philip K. Dick, which I have to tip my cap to him for, right? Philip K. Dick did not see himself as a writer. Philip K. Dick saw himself as a philosopher who used writing to inject some of his philosophical ideas. And being a Sagittarius, of course, is going to be philosophical. Now, there's the moment of the pink light where Philip K. Dick, who had had some dental work, was probably high on something from the dentist. And Philip K. Dick would take drugs so he could achieve altered states of consciousness. And there was a delivery girl who came by his house to drop off some prescription drugs. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she had a cross on. She had a cross on. Okay, we can deal with the lighting stuff after the show. I appreciate that, but we'll work on it. So Philip K. Dick had this experience where the delivery girl, I think she has a cross, and this light, right? This light hit her cross, and it shot like this pink light into Philip K. Dick's vision and consciousness. And he got this major download of kind of everything, right? And he talked about deja vu. And when you experience deja vu, what you're experiencing is the past being altered. And I used to have some of the strongest deja vus when I was a kid, right? So when I heard this from Philip K. Dick, it made a lot of sense, right? Now we have the Mandela effect, and it feels like the world that we're living in is very different than the world that we were in 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 20 years ago even. Now, some of this is a manufactured simulacra, meaning that there are people who don't know the first Star Wars series. Not that I'm advocating that they have to go run out and watch the first 3 Star Wars films, but they have these other Star Wars movies that have replaced them. Like there's a whole other mythology of Star Wars with the Luke Skywalker character being replaced by a girl, right? And it's a similar version of that universe, but it's not the same. And you can see this for any number of remakes. Let me give you an example. The Wild Wild West. In the TV show The Wild Wild West, which is kind of an interesting melange of kind of James Bond meets a Western with some really cool antiquarian steampunk stuff going on. It was a TV show that was, kind of singular and had a vibe and a look unlike any other version of the Wild Wild West. But when they went to make a movie version of the Wild Wild West, they changed the characters. James West was played by Will Smith, which made him black instead of white. And then the Artemis Gordon character was played by Kevin Kline. Not much change there. But it's another kind of retrocausal remaking of the past. So, for instance, Will Smith remakes the Omega Man, and it goes from being the Omega Man with Charlton Heston to I Am Legend with Will Smith. And this happens across the board with a lot of these, franchise movies. Now, some of it is like, well, we'll make the same movie for a new generation. I get it. You had The Day of the Jackal. The Day of the Jackal starred Edward Fox, and the first Day of the Jackal was phenomenal. It was really great. And then they remade it with Val Kilmer. Not as good, right? So some of this is updating the theme for a movie for a different generation or a different audience. But when you go into something like Star Wars, you're creating an entirely new mythology. And so in a lot of ways, you're also rewriting the past. And that's just kind of off-the-shelf user version of what I'm talking about. But what if our reality is being manipulated by people that are going back and forth through these timelines? And as a result, trying to control the present so that the future has a very different look about it or a very different outcome. And when we look at the Charlie Kirk event, it almost feels like that, right? Now, the good news is that according to Philip K. Dick, there is an intelligence above the people or the entities that can manipulate time. And he calls that Valis. And so every time they do something, in order to change the outcome of the game. The game itself is changing the parameters of the game. So something like Charlie Kirk and whatever it was intended to do, which I'm going to try to get into tonight, ultimately has a different kind of outcome than the one that they set out to initiate. Right? Jackal was Bruce Willis. That's right. Thank you. It was The Saint. See, fucked around in my brain. Val Kilmer was The Saint. The Saint was never a movie. It was a TV show. Thank you, Penny. I appreciate that. Yes, it was Bruce Willis. But still, it's the same. It's a similar theory in a lot of ways. Quentin Tarantino has also done this, but he does it with other movies. He'll take other movies and scenes from them, insert them in his movies, and kind of recast them and rebrand them. I don't know. It's kind of like sampling, I think, as a DJ. That's a kinder way of putting it. Okay. Valis is a great book. Philip K. Dick was way ahead of the time. Am I talking about the archons? If that's what you want to call them, I mean, look, if you get into like Peter Moon's work with, say, Tales of Synchronicity, Montauk, and you get into the Philadelphia experiment and these time loops and time travels, I'm not sure if it's just completely the archons. Although the archons may have the ability to instruct people to go back in time or move forward in time. But there's clearly enough human evidence to suggest that it's not just the archons. Part of the Trump lore, and again, this is like really strange, right? Like part of the Trump lore is the fact that once Tesla died, Donald Trump's uncle discovers his stuff, right? Like they send him over there to go look into Tesla's rundown hovel of an apartment. And if we believe that there is a Tesla, we'll go by that. So he goes there, and it's the equivalent in some ways of getting the almanac for Biff in Back to the Future 2, right? Where Biff is actually able to use the time machine, go back in time, place all these bets, and by the time the future rolls around, he's president of the United States and acting an awful lot like Donald Trump. And then you have to ask yourself, how did they figure out what those similarities were? Were they just ciphering Biff and having him live at the top of this fancy hotel with Marty's mother in kind of a rundown, very corrupt version of the world where Biff is president? So could there be human agency involved in this? I certainly think so. I think there is human agency involved in this. Now, could they have gotten the technology from some archonic Sith Lord? Maybe. I mean, even if you go back and like how many people knew about the Baron Trump books before Donald Trump became president, and about halfway through his first term, those Ingersoll Lockwood books were discovered and recognized? I mean, don't you think that? I mean, who knows? Maybe they were there the whole time, but we didn't become aware of them until about halfway through Trump's presidency, and everybody's losing their mind about the Baron Trump books. In the book that Ingersoll Lockwood writes called The Last President, there is something going on here. And I think it's one of the reasons why it's difficult for the layperson to get ahead. because the playing field, like the goalposts just aren't always moving. Sometimes it's a completely different field. Am I right? Sometimes it's a completely different field. And how many times have you seen a person that you like would know of by their public persona, and then you see that person again, you say, well, that doesn't look like that person, right? There's just something off about the person. And it's not just one person. When you look at those mugshots for Antifa, and you guys know what I'm talking about, those mugshots from Antifa, you look at them and you say, these people aren't even human. Like, they look like completely distorted and weird, and who knows, maybe a diet of methamphetamine and vegan foods will do that to you. But they look like a completely different species. It's like a different species that's like taking over the rabble in a lot of ways. And so the topography of our planet, the social structure, social order, seems to be tweaked to a point where now it's barely unrecognizable. Aaron puts up a really interesting comment. 100%. I have wondered off and on for years now if I died and I just didn't know. I think that there's something to that. I think that the real breakthrough is going to occur when people wake up and realize we're not in the same place. And when you have events like the Charlie Kirk thing, which I'm going to attempt to bring some astrology in, all of a sudden, everything that happens as a result of, like, there is a timeline, whatever you believe with Charlie Kirk, whether you think there was a trap door or whether it was the guy who's there and does that, or whoever, right? Or the guy rehearsing, right? Whatever you think, there is a timeline where Charlie Kirk lives. And Charlie Kirk is in circulation. Now, it could be that the plot fails, or maybe something happens, and for whatever reason, Charlie Kirk gets into an accident on the way to the event, throws everything off, right? There's all kinds of variables that can take place. But in a post Charlie Kirk timeline, if he's alive, we're living in a very, very different world. And I'm not saying it's a better world or a worse world, but now there's a whole sequence of reality and events. And I'm not saying it's bad, by the way, but we're living in now this brings us back to Kennedy and what happened on 11/22/63. Again, whatever you think of Kennedy, whatever you believe happened with Kennedy, right? We were different after that event. The timeline moved in a different direction, completely different direction. We had the continuance of the Vietnam War. We had Johnson's Great Society. We had more assassinations. We had the 1960s as an MK Ultra carnival, replete with all kinds of free sex, love, rock and roll, right? Woodstock, the ultimate free festival, and all that's being. Yeah, I was listening to Joe Rogan a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how great the 60s would have been if the CIA weren't involved, because there was all this peace and love, and people were trying to figure out the world in a different way. What Joe doesn't understand is that the CIA helped create the 60s. They were the ones that were responsible for massive amounts of LSD being distributed through, ultimately first through Timothy Leary, and then unwittingly through the eternal, was it the Brotherhood of Eternal Love and Crushed Orange Sunshine, right? I mean, the CIA helped create the fucking 60s. So Joe's a little off there. So they created the 60s, and then they created the cognitive dissonance of the 60s. But that was a timeline split. There's another timeline split, which is interesting because what's his name? Alan Moore writes about this with Nixon. And Nixon, had he been able to finish his term, probably would have won the Vietnam War. Right? He probably would have won. But he couldn't because there's already starting to be this turn down because he knows that he's pretty much on his way out. That's another weird timeline split. So we come to these moments in time, and the Charlie Kirk event clearly is one of them. And we're on the other side of this thing, but I'm gonna try to make a case that when they move the pieces on the chessboard, the script overwriter is doing something else, so that ultimately this resolves itself into some form of more perfect order than an unending sort of symphony of chaos. And where we are now, it's so funny. I was watching Jason Whitlock the other day, and he had a guest on there. And this guy was, I would call him a Christian nationalist. And he basically said, you're going to hear a lot about Christian nationalism over the next 3.5 years. That's what he said, 3.5 years, which is really the allotted time that Saturn and Neptune are basically going to be sharing space together in the sign of Aries. So he had the timeline right? And I guarantee you this guy knew nothing about astrology. And he basically said, if you don't like where things are going, and you don't like the force of morality, I'm paraphrasing a bit here, and you don't like somebody telling you that you can't abort a child, well, why don't you tell a child that they can't live and that they're going to be mechanically removed from the body? And it's like, and if I have a say in it, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that choice for them, right? So I thought, well, this is really interesting because this guy's confirming the next 3.5 years. Now, the next 3.5 years, once we get into February, with albeit a brief return of Uranus and Taurus, and then 2 years from now, Jupiter in Virgo, there's no earth in the sky. It is air and it is fire. And next year we have the fire horse. And the year after that, we have the fire goat. So I don't know if you're tracking fires and explosions lately, but we just had a huge bomb explosion in Tennessee. Huge amount of people died in Tennessee. So one of the things that we're going to be witnessing over the course of the next 3.5 years is a very, very explosive environment, because that's what's in the atmosphere. It's going to be fire and air, fire and air. Better hydrate. You better hydrate, because the next 3.5 years are going to be. It's a real time of initiation. You know, I was watching this show today on who was it? Pizarro, the guy who conquered the Incans. When you hear the stories of these Spanish conquistadors going into places like Mexico and even more intense Peru, it's like it's pretty fucking impressive in a lot of ways that these guys were actually able to achieve their goal, which was ultimately bloodthirsty domination and fighting amongst each other, and then the Peruvian tribes fighting amongst. I mean, it's mind blowing, right? That these guys were driven by God and gold to get to the top of the world and then ultimately dominate that space. But when you think about the trials and travails of what they had to go through, like one of the things that they had to go through to get literally just even get to land, right, where they could start to climb and do the nosebleed up into the Andes, is that they had to at one point eat these crabs, like because they didn't have a bunch of food, so they found all these crabs sort of in this area that was sort of swampy. Well, apparently the crabs were immune to this tree that they were eating, and the tree was poison. And so these guys were eating these crabs, and then they came down with this weird, like poisonous disease, and they would have all these boils. And, when they go and lance the boil, instead of just lancing the boil, they'd start to fucking bleed to death. And they went through all this shit, right? Altitude sickness, all these tribes or a couple of tribes that are massively outnumbered, like 100,000 to and these guys are like 200 dudes, right? But somehow they were able to reach their goal and ultimately wind up dominating that part of the world. Although it doesn't end well for Pizarro. He winds up dying in battle. But when you think about stuff like that, and you think about what people had to go through in World War One too, but World War II, and the bombings and the air raid and the sirens, and we think about the vicissitudes of human history, we're actually made of pretty strong stuff, and that we can endure a lot more than we're capable of, or we think we're capable of. So I think one of the things that you can do that can be very helpful is to read stories or watch documentaries on hardship and how people are able to get through difficult times, with the idea that somewhere along the way, the game overseer director will make counter moves to the moves that people are making to ultimately gain more control over this realm. And sometimes these things can be very, very inspiring, really, really inspiring. They were bombing buildings from Tartaria. Yeah, well, that's true. But people got through it, right? Especially in World War II. I mean, would it be nicer if all of a sudden the vibration in the realm went up and everybody who couldn't relate to that vibration just got sent to another place? Sure, absolutely. It'd be great. But I think the vibration part's up to us, in getting through these next few years is going to be tricky. I think the big test for all of us is going to be the economy, and ultimately the move towards whatever they're going to call a CBDC. They won't call it a CBDC. Anyway, these are just things I've been thinking about, and this Charlie Kirk event has changed reality in many ways, right? We went from sort of this peak level of noise with Epstein, all of a sudden Charlie Kirk. And then we go to the Kirk Memorial, and then the government shuts down. And then the Trump family makes a shit ton off of crypto. Okay, we almost have 300 people in here. So now I want to be able to shift gears a little bit. And I want to share something with you that some of you might be really interested in. Over the weekend, David, it was on Friday, he gave me a call and he said, "Hey, listen, I want to do something for the event." And what he did is he struck a deal with Rion, and David is going to live stream the entire event. So that's going to be taking place over on High Vibe. And what you're going to get is you're going to get everything. You'll get all the speakers. You'll get David's Saturday night dance party. You'll get interviews. Like David and I will be walking around talking to people. You'll get to meet people at the conference. So if you wanted to go, but you can't attend, but you want to be a part of it, let me show you what we have here. This is super cool. And this is the live stream. This is the live stream. Oh, look at that, Buckaroo Banzai. That's one of my favorite movies of all fucking time. A little 80s dance party there. That's cool. So this is over on, there's a link in the description of the show. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Here we go. I love Buckaroo Banzai. It's one of my favorite, and I love this end here. I think David is inserting people who are going to be at the event. There's David, Tommy Perfect. That's awesome. These are the speakers. This is great. There I am. There you go. This is so cool. There it is, the Bridge Expo. So you can go here. The link is in the description for the show. And it is an all access pass for $99. $99, you get to be part of the whole thing, and you get to keep the video as well. And who knows, maybe we'll do some special shout outs to people who are watching at home. We'll figure out some chat stuff. We'll find a way to get you involved so that you feel like you're going to be there. There you go. Aaron L has another cool comment here. Recommended read The Mandibles, A Family, 2029 to 2047 by Lionel Shriver, is a fiction novel that explores the devastating effects of money collapse and hyperinflation. I went to school with the Mandibles. I did. Jackie Mandible. And I forget his brother's name. The Mandibles. I went to school with the Mandibles. What are the odds on that? So go ahead, check it out. $99. You get a full-on copy, and you'll get to be with us the whole time. So, and you get to keep it. That's your copy. And we'll find ways to get you guys involved. We'll figure, like if we do a Q&A, we'll see if we can get some of the people on the live stream involved in the Q&A. I think that should be doable. It shouldn't be that hard. So that means that you can participate, not just be there or not just watch us. You can participate in this as well. And don't forget, we also have some merch, Be the Future, and that's available as well. That's at leoking.shop. That's easy to find as well. Yeah. I wonder what that family did to get to the name Mandibles. I don't know. I didn't really like the Mandibles. I didn't like him and his brother. But I'm sure they're fine people now. Okay, speaking of now, let's get into where we are astrologically. So this is what we like to do here. It's the chart. I'm not going to do a huge, big show tonight. I always say that, but I'll probably go for maybe about 2 hours tonight. Let you guys get some rest and sleep up so that when you wake up, the world will be different. Let's see. There we go. Look at that. StreamYard likes my new computer. We'll zoom in a little bit. It's interesting when we do the morning show, the sun is almost always over here in the 12th house. And almost on the exact opposite time, the sun is over here in the 7th house. But that's how it's supposed to work, isn't it, boys and girls? So we're 19 degrees into Libra. We've actually crossed the midpoint of Libra. So now we're starting to tilt into the dark a little bit. Now, Venus is... Oh. I think my son is getting red-pilled. You see, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. When they decide that they're going to alter the script of our reality, inadvertently, they change the script. So let me give you just a little synopsis of what just happened there. My son, who is 21 years old, raised primarily in a lot of ways by his liberal mother. And what goes along with that are generally politically correct attitudes. However, and he has demonstrated some of those, when he was in junior high, he and a bunch of other students, at the behest of one of their teachers, walked out of school to demonstrate and protest against gun violence, thanks to David the Pied Piper Hogg. And, it's to be commended. Yeah, it's like his mom was kind of rubbing it in. Oh, your son walked out today because of gun violence. I'm like, good. He's politically active. Good for him. And I meant it. I think, did I cheer the cause? No, not really. But at least he cared. So I would say he's been primarily more on the liberal side. But I just got a text from him. And he said, they just showed a commercial on Sunday Night Football. Stop Jewish hate. What did he say after that? They couldn't make it more obvious. You see, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. The overplaying of the hand. Well, we've got all the pieces in place. We've got this board lined up. No, you don't. You don't have it lined up. And in fact, what you're doing is you're waking up an entire group of people who might have been much more amenable to your message if you weren't so damn heavy-handed about it. It doesn't work. It just does not work. Pluto retrograde has been doing a number on people's attitudes, biases, and beliefs. As a group, people are rethinking what socially they should theoretically be believing in. This is what's going on. People are not dancing to Fiddler on the Roof. If I were a rich man. No, they're not. And the more there is an overt effort to get people in line, the worse it's going to get. And my son, who I would not, he is no fan of Nick Fuentes, right? My son has a roommate who's from Nigeria. And, you know, he hasn't sorted through Nick's view on race. And his roommate is his best friend. So he's not a groiper. But when my son sees that, that is a big litmus. And it's Pluto retrograding through Aquarius. It's been doing this for a while. And all these actions and all these activities have been taking place under this Pluto retrograde. And guess what? There's Pallas just sitting there. Pattern recognition, pattern recognition, pattern recognition. Now we got a whole freaking planet of people breaking down Charlie Kirk, Erica Kirk, what's going on with digital money. We can't just call it Bitcoin anymore, but digital money. And apparently they've got control of that now too, because trust me, I got a ringside seat on this shit with Masaki. And he's telling me what's going on. All this. He follows the crypto world like David and I follow the zodiac or the planets, right? Like that's how intense he is with all of this. And he has demonstrated to me that every time there's going to be a run, there's a whale who comes in and winds up shorting the market in crypto and basically takes everything that they have and sells it. And then the coins will go down and dump, and they'll make money on the dip, right? And then once they're in on the dip, they go back in, and then they buy more crypto. Now, people have seen crypto as the last bastion of free market capitalism, but now they're starting to wake up, and you've got heavy players involved. You got BlackRock involved in the crypto world. It's not just the domain of, crypto bros. I mean, you have massive consortiums that are going in and moving the market. I mean, that's just one area. There's a whole area here, right? As the social economy, we'll call this the social economy. Every time there's an alteration or every time there is an edit to what I call the social economy, it wakes more people up. Now, you would think that with, let me see, let me go back here. Hold on. Okay, I'm good. You would think that with all of their advanced computing, whether they have quantum computing or not, or their AI models, they're able to model the variable of chaos and say, okay, well, if we do this, we'll wake up 3% of the population. But if we take control of 15% of the mind share, that means we're still 12% ahead of, some version of consensus reality, right? Like, I think that they work with those like they know that they're going to take on some kind of loss of full faith and credit in the system. But at a certain point, they won't care because they'll just be steps away from putting the last few steps to the top of the ladder, and then the all-seeing eye comes on. And then you have the capstone of the pyramid reattached to the pyramid, and you have Novo Ordo Selectum, right? New order of the ages. So there you go. But this is happening now. And like I said, my kid's not even close to being a groper. But he's waking up. He's waking up. So let's talk a little bit about Libra. Since we're on the other side, we're right now, we're just approaching the third decan, which is the Gemini decan of Libra. We've been in the Aquarian decan for roughly the last 10 days, right? It starts off with Libra, goes to Aquarius, and now we're going to Gemini. And that's where you get all the weird reflection stuff. That's where you get the weird double stuff. And again, there's more talk of Trump having a double or doubles. You're going to hear more of it over the course of the next 10 days. But let's just talk about Libra in general, which a lot of times, we go through these signs and we don't even really address their significance. So there are more people born under the sign of Libra than any other sign. And you just have to do the simple math. Most people are conceived during the dark winter month of September and January, right? People are huddling, cold, a little snuggle, nuzzle. And the next thing you know, there's a bun in the oven, right? So more people are born under the sign of Libra than any other sign. Secondly, probably Virgo, those two signs. And Libras, they operate best when they're in connection with another person. We'll even get into that with Charlie Kirk when we bring up his chart here. Libra is the sign that connects the bottom part of the chart with the top part of the chart, although they're reversed, but here's the horizon, and all of these houses have to do with your personal development, right? Self, money, material values, resources, early childhood education, siblings, the world around you in terms of your local community, and a few other odds and ends, but those are the main touch points. Fourth, your home, emotional values, how you grew up, what was important there. Fifth house, the things that you love, romance, play, pastimes, hobbies, things that you do when you're a child that make you feel good and help you forget time. The sixth house, this is all about learning, right? Learning a craft, learning a trade, getting good at something, right? Having at times a mentor or somebody who can instruct you. It's also about service, small animals, kind of humbling yourself, even finding your dharma. So these are all the acquisition of personal skills and interpersonal skills. Now we come to the split in the wheel, which is Libra, and it takes us into the encounter with the other. So this is all about partnerships and contracts. That's Libra. That's the seventh house. Partnerships, contracts. Now, the sign itself has a bit more beauty, style, elegance, aesthetics. They go along with it. But here in the seventh house, it is the cantilever, the balance point seasonally between spring over here, fall over here, and the descent into darkness. So when we go into Scorpio, we are in uncharted territory, right? Scorpio, we go from trying to maintain some balance between this part of our lives and this part of our lives into an area where we don't have a lot of control. Scorpio is, Virgo, theoretically, we have control, right? We strive to achieve perfection, get good at things. In a lot of ways, with Scorpio, we find out that there's a lot more that we don't know, that there are certain bits of knowledge that are occluded or occulted or hidden from us. Sometimes we'll even get lost in the process of actualizing our own desires with Scorpio. It's not always a fruitless affair. Sometimes when you go through Scorpio, you will find and understand things about yourself that are critical. But when you do, you will not be the same person once you come through those experiences. You will be fundamentally changed, you will be transformed, and the life that you were living will no longer be the same. And part of it has to do with this idea of death, right? And nobody can really do this for you, right? Now, there's another interesting iteration which does have to do with the seventh house of Libra, and that's the idea of sex and procreation. So once you become betrothed to somebody, you say, okay, we're going to be partners. Scorpio is the ink on the paper. It is the ink on the paper. It is the thing that binds you to a finite universe in a lot of ways. So if it's a marriage contract, it's till death do you part. Or in the case of Melania Trump, it's 20 years, which could seem like a lifetime, depending upon what mood the Donald is in. But that's the nature of Scorpio. It takes us into the darkness. And we're going to talk a bit more about that as it relates to Charlie Kirk, right? But it's an essential part of the chart. It's where psychically we become undone. And we have to face our fear. There's whatever the fear is, it's usually one or two things, but mostly death. We have to face our fear, and we're alone. A lot of times Scorpio is white knuckling at 2:30 in the morning, when all of a sudden you have this existential crisis, from a dream you just had, or perhaps you carried it into your sleep, and the next thing you know, you're really struggling with what they call the shadow, right? So we can't gloss over this time. Now, I'm not going to talk about Ophiuchus. We're just going to embrace Scorpio here in Placidus land. Okay. So this isn't. We're now we're moving towards this. We're moving more towards darkness on the northern part of the hemisphere of the planet, and it's like, for me, the eighth house in Scorpio is like the Marianas Trench in the chart. Like, once you drop off into that eighth house, you're down. You're into, for me, Scorpio in the eighth house has always been like the deepest lakes in the world, like Lake Tahoe, Loch Ness, Lake Baikal, Lake Titicaca. These are these really, really, really deep, deep lakes. And some of them have had the lore of having these kind of intercontinental channels where these lakes are connected, like around the planet. It also, for me, is like big, wide, raging rivers, like the Nile or the Amazon, or I guess the Colorado in some places, the Rio Plata, right? Where there's a big raging river, it's usually going to be dark water in Scorpio. So Scorpio is dark water. And we've already got Mars kind of plowing through there, and then Mercury not far behind. So why don't we stop there? I mean, we could go around the chart, but we'll just go to Sagittarius. Once you get to Sagittarius, you're breaking through to the other side. Whatever you've gone through with Scorpio, whatever you've gone through with a powerful 8th house transit, it's like now you're coming up for air. And hopefully you have navigated that transit successfully. Now, I'm going to share something with you folks. If you have Pisces in your 8th house cusp, which would mean you have over here Aquarius, you'd be like a Leo rising, some degree Leo rising. If you've had Pisces, Saturn and Pisces going through your 8th house, you've been going through a period of soul reclamation, because that's where soul reclamation takes place. It's in the 8th house, right? It's where parts of yourself get lopped off and they're hanging out there. And with the Saturn transit, you have the opportunity to go back and get part of yourself that you've either consciously or unconsciously gave away. So do not sleep on the Saturn 8th house transit. It is one of the most critical and crucial transits in astrology. Now, Donald Trump is just starting to have Saturn go through his 8th house. It'll be interesting to see what happens as Saturn moves through his 8th house with a bit more speed and direction. Just saying. And I don't have Trump derangement syndrome, but I'm not a huge fan of this iteration. Oh, it was like, it's so extreme, isn't it? In the first go round, we get all those GOP stiffs, just a bunch of stiffs. Like, who picked his cabinet? Mike Pompeo? You gotta be fucking kidding me. General Mike Mattis, Elaine Chao, Jeff Sessions. I mean, the only person that was worth this shit was Steve Bannon. And even Bannon's got some sketchy credentials, but he got kicked out by Jared. So you had all these GOP stiffs. And now you've got all these sycophantic yes people. Like, but that's Trump. That's the Sun-Uranus conjunction. You're going to get that. Anyway, we're headed towards Scorpio in more intensity and more darkness, right? And this is where collectively we face our fears. We face the boogeyman. And supposedly that's what Halloween is supposed to do, right? You let the boogeyman out for a night. You feed the boogeyman candy, and the costume goes back in the box for a year. In a society that has healthy rituals, I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, that's what monster movies used to be about. Monster movies were created as a type of almost cinematic exorcism, where there's a personification of a creature that is going to scare people. And it's almost as if that creature is sort of part of the collective unconscious. It represents the shadow, right? It represents part of our shadow. But at the end of the movie, the creature has died, or creature dies. So if it's the werewolf, he gets the silver bullet. If it's Dracula, he gets a stake to the heart. If it's Frankenstein, he gets electrocuted and then burned. If it's the creature from the Black Lagoon, they stick him in a pool full of chlorinated water. But that's how it went for years. The first movie that really kind of breaks with that is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's the first movie I remember where they don't put the monster back in the box. And there's that scene at the end with Kevin McCarthy, and he's losing his mind, and he's running down the highway, and he jumps onto the back of a truck, a produce truck, and he looks in, and it's filled with all these pods, right? And he jumps off the back of the truck, and he's like screaming into the camera. That movie scared the fucking shit out of me. I remember looking under my bed for pods for about a month. And it's because they didn't put the monster back in the box. But that's what Halloween is supposed to do, right? You get your little costume in a box. You take it out. You become the monster. You go house to house, boogie, boogie, boogie. Give me some candy, or I'll do monstrous things to you. You give them candy, right? You supplicate the image of the shadow, and you put the monster back in the box for a year. In a society that has healthy rituals, I don't really have a problem with that. However, Halloween has become more than just that. It seems to be kind of tainted now. You remember when they used to have haunted houses? And they were scary. Like the big scary thing was putting your hand in a jar full of cold pasta, and you thought it was worms. Like that was kind of the height of it being scary. Now it's like a Wes Craven movie when you go to these fucking haunted houses. They're probably designed by MK Ultra torture masters. And who knows? Maybe people wind up going missing in those haunted houses. I don't know. I wouldn't go near one now because they don't put the monster back in the box. But that's what this time of year is supposed to do. Right? That's what Halloween is supposed to do. You have this one night, right? It is a psychic ritual. These little kids who are kind of monsters anyway. We know, and they get to be monsters for a night, right? And then you give them candy, whatever, and then back in the box goes the costume until the next year. And that's a healthy ritual. And in a lot of ways, it is the ritual for this time of year. But again, unfortunately, it seems to have gone into some much more darker places. But Libra's the balance, right? Libra's the balance between the irrefutable quest for perfection, which is Virgo, and the dissolution into the id with Scorpio. So Libra is the precarious balance between the two. Now, what's really interesting is, I'm a sports guy. I'll give you an example of Libra. There's a guy who plays for the Golden State Warriors. His name is Jonathan Kuminga. And Jonathan Kuminga is a Libra. And Jonathan Kuminga held out for a contract. Now, all players hold out for contracts at some point in time or another. But what makes the Kuminga case unique to the sign of Libra is that he wanted his situation to be fair, right? And money was not the fairness factor. The money helped, don't get me wrong, but he wanted to be in a situation where the offense that he would be in this case, the Golden State Warriors, would allow him or any other team to showcase his talents. because he fancies himself as an on-ball scorer. Means he has to have the ball in his hand. And this guy's incredibly athletic. He can block shots, he can rebound, but that's not really what he does. So because he hasn't been, in his mind, paid commensurately, he's gone out of his way to overcompensate for that by trying to score a lot of points. Well, if you're not going to give me the situation to do it, I'm going to do it on my own. Right? This is his way to balance out the situation. Steve Kerr just wants him to play good team basketball. Pass up a shot, find the open person, play some defense, block a shot, get some rebounds. Steve Kerr wants him to play inside of a team structure to add balance to the rest of the team. Ironically, Steve Kerr also happens to be Libra. So you have two Libras trying to balance one another. And two Libras in relationship, they can either hit it off or they can play tag team while one of them is out of balance while the other is. And then vice versa. It'll be hard for both Libras to be on the same page at the same time. Not in all cases, but in many cases that'll be true. Right? They'll switch, they'll have like this weird circadian rhythm where they do that. So Jonathan Kuminga, people would say, well, he doesn't know how to play team basketball. He doesn't understand what to do. He's like a thoroughbred. Let this guy cook. Well, he got a new contract. He's making $25 million a year, which he could clearly feel good about. It's a 2-year deal. So now what is he doing? He's playing the way Steve Kerr wanted him to play. He's making the extra pass. He blocked a shot the other night, one of the first times I've ever seen this guy who can jump out of the fucking gym block a shot. It's like he actually gave a shit. Why did he give a shit? Because he had balance now in his life. Okay, you're paying me this. I'm going to show up and be the player that you want me to be. That is how Libra, excuse me, that's how Libra operates. When you're involved with a Libra who's out of balance, they're not getting something. Whatever it is, right? They're either not getting recognition, money, compensation, whatever, credit, whatever. And so when they're like that and they're not getting that, you will not get all of the Libra. You won't. You'll get the part that wants to see. Libra is very transactional. It's incredibly of all the signs, Libra is the most transactional. And I got 3 planets in Libra. So when I say this, I know a little bit about it. And that's just the way it is with Libra. Libra is the only sign in the zodiac that is mechanical. None of these other signs are mechanical. They're either mythical or they're an animal, right? You got a crab, you got a lion, you got a virgin, you got a scorpion, you got a centaur, you got a goat, you got usually a woman up in the clouds with a cistern, you got 2 fish, you got a ram, you got a bull, and you got 2 twins. But the only one that's mechanical is Libra. And by the way, Mario has done, from Symbolic Studies, did a great breakdown on Libra at our event last year. It was brilliant, really, really brilliant. So how you deal with the Libra is to make sure things are fair. And by the way, I will tell you this, Libras keep score. They keep score. They know who's done what, who's paid for what, how many times a person is treated. They keep track of this. And if at a certain point it becomes imbalanced, they will stop. They'll stop. And you'll say, well, You used to do all these things. What made you stop? Well, what made me stop is because I was doing all those things and nobody else was doing any of the other things. So I'm going to let them fill in the gap, right? I mean, if Libra's transactional, wouldn't that be the ultimate outcome? So it's poised between a lot of different things. A lot of different things. When we get into Charlie Kirk's chart, I'll show you a little bit more here. We got the moon in Cancer, and we're coming up on a Jupiter moon conjunction here. Wow. Talk about God bless America. Is patriotism at an all-time high now? Question mark. You know, did you ever see the movie A Boy and His Dog? It's one of these cult classics. I think Harlan Ellison might have written the story. And it's about a post-nuclear Holocaust world. And Don Johnson plays this kind of rogue. And he's kind of just out in this post-apocalyptic world looking for pussy, which sounds a lot like a role Don Johnson would have no problem playing, being a part of. And he has a dog who is psychic. And so he and his dog are able to communicate with one another. Anyway, Don Johnson's character winds up following this woman literally down a rabbit hole. It's like a manhole that's got a ladder, and he winds up going into this underground world that has been set up by the people who have survived this nuclear apocalypse. And the way that they've set up this world is that it looks like 1950s America circa Nebraska. And it's really kind of hokey and old-timey and weird. But none of them can procreate because they're all sterile. So they have to lure men down into this world every now and then to, milk them so that they can create more offspring. And this version of America that we're headed towards, in a lot of ways, reminds me of that underground version in A Boy and His Dog. And it's kind of like trying to get back to this older version of America. It's like timeline stuff again. It's trying to get back to this older version of America that doesn't exist anymore. And in a lot of ways, it feels really forced and kind of regressive. And I'm all for patriotism and love of country and secure borders and, doing our best to undo the absolute mess that was created by the prior administration, now being exacerbated by this. I'm all for it. Right? So it's not like I'm here to, bang my liberal drum or anything, but there's something about this current reformation of making America great again that feels hollow. It feels very, very hollow because it's all based on like platitudes and promise, empty calories. It's like the McDonald's burger that doesn't decay and lasts 20 years. And I feel like this version of Jupiter, Jupiter here is in the third decan. So it's moved very quickly, and it's in the Piscean decan. And that's where we get into illusion, right? It's like this imaginary America. And we can't go back. I mean, are there things from the past that we could resurrect that might be good? Sure. Yeah, why not? I don't have them off the top of my head right now. How about double headers in baseball? I like double headers. Bring back double headers in baseball. Get rid of the pitch clock in baseball. That would make America great again. Just those two things alone. Get rid of instant replay in football. Back in the old days, where if a ref made a mistake, Stop paying college players. Back in the old days, it was all under the table. And if you got caught, you were in trouble. Now you've got hedge funds backing conferences. And you say, well, Robert, you're just being stodgy. Time marches on, progress marches on. Yeah, there's some truth to that. But everything I've seen about making America great so far isn't really doing it for me. Now, I like the kids, don't get me wrong. I think the kids are on the right path because the kids are up against it. They know that their future is pretty fucked. Unless you're a paid influencer for Israel, in which case your future is bright. But they've got nothing to lose. Ask them about how great America was. They don't even know. These kids were born in the 2000s. Late 90s, 2000s. They can't tell you ring Lardner from a nose ring. There's nothing wrong with that. So this idea of making America great again is an abstraction, and it's completely based on some kind of past future fiction. You know, give me that old time religion remixed with Lee Greenwood. Can you imagine they want Lee Greenwood to fucking sing? I can't believe this. People want Lee fucking Greenwood to sing at an alternate Super Bowl halftime show put on by TP fucking USA. Now, these are people whom I respect, but they're just scratching the surface with the whole TPUSA Charlie Kirk thing. Well, they don't want to get their hands dirty until somebody else comes along and gets their hands dirty 3 times over. Then it's safe for them to get their fingernails dirty. Then they'll come in and they'll chime it in. I've seen people like that. But they won't start the scrum, but they'll jump in on the scrum after there's 15 or 20 people in the scrum. I can't believe it. Like, first of all, you're backing TPUSA. Secondly, you're trying to promote Lee fucking Greenwood. God bless you. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, they're grasping at straws for this new version of America, sanctified by the high priest, one of the high priests of MK Ultra, Lee Greenwood. I mean, how long is this guy going to sing this one fucking song? And this is the problem with Jupiter in this decan of Pisces. It's an illusion. It's a dream. And it's a dream concocted on whatever version of America people thought was better at whatever time they believed like their golden age was. And that's going to be incredibly subjective for each person. Now, here we go. Let's bring the sun in here. The sun is in square with Jupiter. And over the course of the next few days, right, the sun is going to continue to be in that dynamic tension. Now, one of the things that Libra, not in all cases, but a lot of times Libra will ditch confrontation. Libra is not always into confrontation. Of all the signs, Libra and Pisces are the two that will go along to get along. Libra will be polite. Now, every now and then, you'll find a Libra that has a crackling wit, like Oscar Wilde. You know who else is a Libra, has a savage wit? Milo Yiannopoulos. That guy's got a savage wit. He kind of reminds me of Oscar Wilde a little bit. So every now and then with Libra, you'll find somebody that can, lash a tongue or two. But by and large, if they do, they'll do it with very eloquent and beautiful language, no doubt. But they'd rather get along than look for a hassle like Aries. Aries doesn't even have to look for a hassle. It comes looking for them. And so there's a lot of overcompensation going on here. So as we move deeper into this tight square over the next 5 days, watch yourself, wherever Libra shows up in your chart, watch yourself in terms of overcompensating and trying to go out of your way to be nice. It may not be the best course of action. Now, sometimes it can be very helpful if you take the higher road. You can do this with the Jupiter Libra square road. But you're also being asked to put it on the scale. What course of action do you want to take? And sometimes in real life, things come at you fast. And that's why you want to be usually. I had this thing. I have enough like ironic distance on this event now that I can talk about it. I got into it last Monday with somebody at a gas pump. I couldn't talk about it last week, but I got into it with somebody at a gas pump. And the story goes like this. My pump's on the right, my tank's on the right, and I'm pulling in, and there's a big Lincoln Navigator ahead of me, takes a left and starts going around one of the islands. Now, the speed at which this Lincoln Navigator was traveling was a good clip, I have to say. Now, I'm kind of clocking it, and I don't want to just pull in because I feel like at this clip that it's going, I'm going to hit the Lincoln Navigator. So I nose my way in, thinking that once they see me, nose my way in, this is how this works, right? As I nose my way in, that they'll say, oh, they have this. Oh, no, that's not the case. The old Lincoln Navigator just barges right in. And I'm like, she fucking know it. And of course, all the pumps are going in the other direction. So I got to go around. I got to do another pump, and somebody's, it could be whatever. And then this woman pops out. She's older. She pops out, and I'm like, I really want to say something to her. Now, this is what's going on in my head. I say to myself, well, if that was a dude, would you say something to him? It's a fair question, right? Remember, this is Libra, so I'm doing the balance game in my head. In my head, am I just picking on an old woman? And the answer to my question was no. Now I got this Saturn-Mars square going on my chart right now, so I've got to really watch myself. So I said, I'm going to talk to her. I'm just going to talk to her. And she was in her car the whole time. She didn't want to get out. And she came out, and I said, can I ask you a question? I said, what was your mindset when you pulled in to get that pump? And she said, Well, I just went around the island and it was my pump. I was here first and it was my pump. Well, she really wasn't there first. I mean, technically, but she didn't pull in. I'm like, okay. And I said, is that how you approach the rest of your life? And then she said, no. And then this guy chimes in. Now, here's the guy part. He chimes in and he starts yelling at me to stop talking to this woman. I said, I'm just having a conversation with her. And he's like getting all red. Like when somebody gets red, they're about to blow. Right? And I'm like, this is not worth my time to get into it with this guy. But I was pissed. I'm like, why do you have to get involved? I'm talking to her and he's just going off. Right? And I just looked at him and said, you have to be so aggressive about it. And I got off and I split. Right? But it was like one of those moments. I had to have a reality check. And my reality check was, would I have done it if it was a guy? My answer was yes. I was just going to find out, like, what was going on? I just wanted to know. I just wanted to know. So my takeaway is that life's just a Lincoln fucking Navigator for her. Just pulls in wherever she wants. Does whatever she wants to do. And God forbid you question an elder in Texas, because you'll have fucking John Wayne wearing a black baseball cap in his black pickup truck waiting to take you out to the kick. You know what I should have said to him? So what are you going to do? Come over here and whoop my ass? It's just I'm 65 years old. I got a heart condition. I'm wearing sandals. Come on over. Just do it. Just come over here and put me in my place. Just do it. It's not about her anymore. It's about me and you. Come on over here and teach me a lesson. Teach me a lesson. You know what? There's cameras all over here. You teach me a lesson. I'll loan that truck of yours. But what happened was, because my ticker, and I got to be careful, because then all of a sudden it's like a fucking hummingbird heart, right? Because now I'm in high cortisol fight or flight. Anyway, that was a Libra moment, right? So when you go into a situation like that, when I go into it, I have to ask myself, what am I getting into? What am I getting into? It would have been just fine for me to just move on. Yeah, but I wanted to know what was going on in her head. Because most times people, when they do that, they go, oh, they do the pantomime. You go, okay. Right? Even if you want the fucking pump, at least make a show of it. Right? Oh, okay. Like, somebody needs to save face in that situation. And if I had zoomed in there, I could have beat her to the pump. But I didn't. I was cautious because I knew she was traveling fast to get to her pump. It's a Libra moment. I weighed the balance. Now, if it was that dude, I would have asked the dude. You know why? Because theoretically, we should be able to talk to people and not have other people perceive that it's a threat. Like, what am I going to do? I didn't swear. I even said, may I ask you a question? Would you mind if I asked you a question? I was being polite about the whole thing. So with the Jupiter Sun square here, you're going to find some things over the course of the next 5 days that you're going to have to address and balance out as it comes to this sort of big picture kind of, let's say you're not living in the United States. I'll take my vision and cast it elsewhere. This big picture kind of parochial, colloquial colloquial way of doing things, right? It's kind of like, God damn it, we want that old man of the Cracker Barrel back. We want the old Cracker Barrel. We liked that old man. We liked all those tchotchkes. We liked those tchotchkes. Wow, that, as long as we have the Cracker Barrel symbol, it's a reminder that America is a gathering place where you can play board games with your grandkids, eat food with a lot of seed oils. It's like, why did they just fucking make their cuisine better? Keep the old shit and just make better food. So when the moon comes in here the next 24 hours, all that stuff's going to be amped up. Really, really amped up. And on the other side, we've got Chiron. And you've got Pete Hegseth addressing all the generals and all the soldiers. And you're too fat. Give me 50 right here. Shave your facial hair. I mean, that's Chiron cutting into Jupiter. Right? I mean, isn't that what that is? And he's there in front of the fucking Patton flag. Just like the movie. I mean, life is a script. They're just pulling shit out of movies. They couldn't even make it original. You could have had a montage of great generals. You could have had Eisenhower and Patton and I don't know, Jimmy Doolittle. He wasn't a general. You know what I mean? Audie Murphy. You get all those pictures behind him. But no, they had to steal a scene from fucking Patton. Anyway, it feels to me like we've been so hollowed out for pride of country, respect for our fellow humans, Americans, whatever. You could translate this across other countries. We've been so hollowed out that people are hungry for that we've had to prostrate ourselves at the feet of lesser gods. By the way, it's still happening on TV. Today I was watching commercials I watched football today, commercials for upcoming TV shows. Well, there's Matlock, but Matlock isn't Andy Griffith. It's Kathy Bates, his daughter, again, changing history. And then there's this other show about this woman. I don't know what the fuck she is. And then there's this show about these two women who are sheriffs. I mean, everything is just completely and utterly tilted. It's still tilted. It's still tilted. So that gives us another sense of this cognitive dissonance, right? So on the one hand, you have people just dying to saying onward Christian soldier. But on the other hand, all the programming on the major networks tends to be the same as it was before Trump became president. It's all heavy. In fact, there's even a TV show called The DMV that's coming out. And it's completely and utterly wrong. Do you know why? And again, I'm not here to stereotype, but in California, the makeup of the DMV ain't nothing like what the makeup on that TV show is. I can tell you that right now. So it's really weird in that, on the one hand, we're getting this dominant message about let's make America great again. Let's have our fighting forces great again. Let's get in great shape again. President's physical fitness, tests. And yeah, it takes a long time to turn a battleship around. I get it. But on the other hand, all these other programs are business as usual. And that in and of itself is a byproduct of noticing. And this Jupiter square to the sun. It's like you're making all these adjustments theoretically on a bureaucratic level, but on a cultural level, we're still being fed the same old shit. We're still getting like Fred Silverman, Brandon Tartikoff, DEI programming 2025. And it feels weird. Now, would it feel better if we had like more family oriented, quote unquote, Americana TV? Maybe, possibly, but I don't think so because we're not going back to that. But again, with this Chiron Jupiter square, what is it going to do? It's going to make Chiron bigger, right? Now, I just read again that Pam Bondi, along with John Cornyn, this guy here in Texas that Ken Paxton is running against, they want to set up a gun registry. So for all you Second Amendment people, Pam Bondi isn't really your friend. I'm not sure who Pam Bondi is a friend of besides Trump and maybe the Scientologists and Ghislaine Maxwell. I mean, she might be one of the worst attorney generals I've ever seen. But, I'm sure we'll get, a couple more false flags along the way to try to push this gun registry thing through. Hello, Jupiter, Chiron square. No, I like Jupiter in Cancer. I do. But it's going to go to 25 degrees, and then the illusion starts to fade away. Right? It goes back to 14 degrees, ultimately puts it in that Scorpio decan, and people are at ground fucking zero. Like this whole dream and illusion about making America great again, the golden age, I guarantee you, this Jupiter retrograde is going to wipe out just tons of gains. And I think we'll be in the midst of a kind of a 1989 financial crisis. And I don't even know if Donald Trump will be around to see that. Unless, of course, he's going to be championing the new Trump digital dollar with the picture of Biff Tannen on it. Let's talk about Venus, right at the 28th degree of Virgo, and part of a grand trine. And we're about 2 days away, 3 days away from it going into Libra, where it will still be in that grand trine, even more so. I really like that. I really like, Venus being in Libra, especially for the Bridge Expo and being able to transmit that event through the wire so you could all be there. It's great. It's a great aspect. Venus, Pluto, Uranus technology is going to be our friend, and we'll shrink the distance between Frisco, Texas, and the rest of the world. I'm really looking forward to it. I want to play the roving reporter mode and just start talking to people and get on mic and interact with a bunch of people. I think that's going to be really, really fun. Really good time. And for relationships, Venus and Libra does bring fairness and a rebalancing of relationships in a lot of ways as well. Libra's been in opposition with Saturn. And it's kind of like, okay, get your work done. And then whatever little time you left to have over with Venus and Virgo, enjoy your downtime. But once Venus moves into Libra, and gets out of that opposition, and even that opposition with Neptune, which is very rose-colored glasses. Like that's an aspect where you may come out on the short end of the stick, like I did at the gas station. But if you're wearing rose-colored glasses, it doesn't matter. Right? Peace, brother. Love you too. You know what I mean? That's kind of a rose-colored glasses moment. Sometimes it's better to wear them than not. What else do we have here? It's a really complex network, isn't it? I mean, right now we've got that Moon Saturn. Moon Saturn, actually, it's a Moon Neptune square. Over the next 24 hours, the Moon moves into a trine with Saturn. That's good. That's solid. If you're looking to purchase some real estate, this Moon transit over the next 24 hours could be good for you because it's coming in with conjunction with Jupiter, best value, big bang for your buck, and you could probably get some financing here. And I'm guessing that there are some owners out there that will take back some financing with the Saturn retrograde. So if you're looking for some good real estate deals, I'd say keep your eyes open for the next 48 hours. That would be my suggestion. I think we need to look at the false flag territory too. As long as Chiron's in square with Jupiter and having everything kind of wrapped in a flag, like there's so much that can be facilitated and move forward with that Jupiter Chiron square. That's my 2 cents on it. Okay, let's get into the next part of the show. Before I do want to talk about True Hemp Science, who is a sponsor of the show. We're bringing on a new sponsor on Tuesday. We're not saying goodbye to Chris. Chris is part of our family, and he will always be a sponsor of the show. On Sunday nights, the first hour, we'll split it up between the two sponsors. And Chris will always have the star of the day. But we're bringing on a new sponsor on Tuesday. I can't wait. The products are superior, and they are going to add value to your lives. And I go through a lot of people and try to find somebody who I could work with both philosophically. They like the show. There's not much I can say that's going to chase them away. That's a real qualifier, right? The sponsor say, hey, can you hold off on that just a little bit? No, these guys are independent. They're independent thinkers, and they're independent producers of a wide variety of products for your body and your home. Can't wait for that. But until then, True Hemp Science is your one-stop shop for all things CBD. All you got to do is go there, check out their offerings. You'll find great stuff like Solara. And all you got to do is spend $100 more, type in 15MINS. You'll get the vaunted goodie bag. Right there, you get some gummies, a couple vials of things. $150 or more gets you free shipping. There's always a money back guarantee as long as you get it back to them within 30 days. TrueHempScience.com, your one-stop shop for all things CBD. All right, let's take a look at Charlie Kirk's chart. Now, I don't know Charlie Kirk's birth time, but I took a crack at rectifying it. And let me show you what I've got here. Okay. So I have Charlie Kirk as a Capricorn rising. Well, you have to ask yourself why. Well, first of all, when you look at a Capricorn rising person, they do not have symmetrical faces. There's something about a Capricorn rising person where they're kind of off, right? Like sometimes they can have one part of their body that's longer than the other, like maybe a foot that's longer than the other foot. Like there's something slightly off about Capricorn rising. And when I look at Charlie Kirk, he, I mean, he could have a Cancer rising face as well. But there's, let me see if I can get a picture of him here. Hold on. Let's see. Let me see if I can find one to show what I'm talking about. He always looks kind of tilted. Do you know what I mean? It's like he has this tilted look about him. Do you see that? He has this weird kind of tilted look. That's a close-up of that picture. Like even here, like this side of his face is different than this side of his face. And he has kind of craggy features even at times. I wouldn't call him necessarily handsome in a classical sense. You see what I mean? Even here, right? There's like this side of his face, the smile goes slightly diagonal. Here's another one. Same thing. This part of his mouth is lower. The eyes seem to be offset a little bit. And again, there's that tilt, right? There's this. So you get this a lot of times with Capricorn rising people. The right side of the mouth goes down this way. It's like his face is headed in two separate directions. Every now and then you'll see him, like that's not a bad picture of him. That's a bit more symmetrical. And he has this birthmark on his chin on one side as well. But it's like his face is going in two different directions at times. Here's another one. See what I'm talking about? Right there. Again, the tilt down this way. Anyway, I had him as I have him as a Capricorn rising. That's what I came to. Now, the Uranus on the ascendant part is the rebel, right? Now, here, the reason I rectified it this way is because he spends time on college campuses. Sun, Jupiter, ninth house, and he is clearly a Libra. Why is he a Libra? Because it is him and another person where they would be in some form of debate. And with Jupiter, it would be more than one. There would be a whole line of people who would debate him. So I have him as a ninth house person, college, campus life. Now, when he started TPUSA off, this was in 2016, at the beginning of Trump's quest to become president. Having a voice like Charlie Kirk on a campus is radical. It's a radical act because campuses were liberal, progressive, and having a voice like Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens on these campuses is different, right? But with Capricorn, it's radical that represents the status quo. You understand what I'm saying? Now, what's interesting with this rectified chart is that it puts Mars and Mercury on the midheaven. And Mars just kind of bleeding from the ninth house to the midheaven. And then Pluto in the 10th house. To me, this makes sense. Everything that we've seen about the event plays this chart out. And the thing that sets the Charlie Kirk event apart from these other events is that it happens in an open air theater. How many times have we heard about shootings that have taken place behind closed doors? Whether they're classrooms, movie theaters, nightclubs, closed doors. This marked a decided turn in the narrative. And so it's shocking. It's traumatic. It's Mars and Scorpio on the freaking midheaven. That's his Mars. That is not where Mars was. Mars was in Libra, crossing his sun at the time of the shooting. Now he's got Moon in Libra and he has Venus. This is the degree of Venus right now. Venus is at 28 degrees. It's the degree of Charlie Kirk's Venus. And hold on a second. All right. But Charlie Kirk was trying to achieve balance. If we can believe that the emails and the texts and the TV interview or the podcast interview with Patrick Bet-David and with Ben Shapiro and the TPUSA text that Candace got, Charlie Kirk was doing a Libran thing. He was trying to restore balance, justice, and fairness within TPUSA. He was tired of being bullied by these so-called Jewish donors. He was questioning Netanyahu's role as it came to Israel and the October 7th massacre, right? I mean, he openly questioned that. And this is what Libra does. He's trying to restore balance to these various narratives. The most personal narrative being, of course, his own, right? His relationship with the donor class of TPUSA. He rejected $150 million coming from Israel in order to speak out against Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Dave Smith, anybody else on the so-called right that had a very different point of view about Israel and their involvement, not in Gaza, but in American affairs. And Kirk pushed back on it. This is the role of Libra. And when you think about the whole idea of even Tipping Point USA, like if you take the T for Tipping Point, TPUSA, the top of the T is almost like a scale, right? And there is a tipping point with the scale, tipping in one way or tipping in the other. So if the scale had been decidedly progressive, liberal, socially Marxist, right? Charlie was there to bring the balance and bring it back into the center, right? A radical voice from the right, tipping the balance back into the center. So in that regard, he's a total Libra, right? It's going to be his birthday in 2 days. He's a total Libra. And Jupiter only accentuated that even more. This is a guy who was into justice and fairness. His true node is in Sagittarius, and he's there to get to the truth. Now he's got that balsamic moon, and that's about letting go of things, right? Charlie Kirk was probably on the precipice of having to let go of TPUSA. What if he walked away from that? And he might have been very close to that. Now, I think he had this intrepid kind of Mars, Mercury. You know, a lot of people didn't like him in debate because he would have these kind of snarky retorts. But I think over time, he got better at the debate thing. I was not a huge Charlie Kirk fan, only because I felt like there were other people out there who had a broader message than just sort of the catechism of the new right, right? But eventually he got it. He's a Libra, and he is the center point, right? He's the center point between order and chaos in a lot of ways. He is the center point between kind of lightness or the height of summer, the dog days of summer, which are going to be sort of, you know, like late August, early September, to the turning of the leaves in fall, into the darkness of Scorpio. Now, what happens, of course, is the Charlie Kirk character is written out of the script. Whatever you think happened, I think he's gone. Right? There's no more Charlie Kirk. And then who takes over? It is Erica Kirk. And what sign is Erica Kirk? She's a Scorpio. She is a freaking Scorpio. So she is the one who the torch is passed to. Right? So Charlie Kirk is this fulcrum of balance and fairness and trying to make sure that the group that he's representing is being represented in a way that is commensurate with his values. And it wasn't. And so for Kirk, the scales were tipping in the wrong direction. They were tipping in a way that was not being fair, just, balanced, and truthful. I mean, it doesn't get much more simple than his astrological chart. whatever you think about him, his background, I mean, he seems a little Truman Show character-esque, but nonetheless, for dealing with Libra, that's what he was dealing with, right? So now this thing happens. And who is standing? It's the next sign over. It's Erica Kirk, right? It's Erica Kirk, who happens to be a Scorpio. So Erica Kirk now becomes the vessel that ushers us into darkness. It's not Charlie. It's not somebody else that's going to replace whatever it is he was supposed to do or was doing. It's Erica Kirk. And if you look at it from that perspective, just from an astrological perspective, right? They take out Charlie Kirk, Libra, Venus, fairness, balance, law, just, fair, gone. And there she is, the Black Widow, right? She's the one that's left. She's the one that is now the so-called face of TPUSA. And she's a Scorpio. I mean, this is literally an event that at an alchemical level sort of pushes us into more murky darkness. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't a connection between these people either. But from Erica's position, it seems like, and I could be completely wrong, but it seems like the relationship favors her more in some ways. Like her Venus is right on his Jupiter Sun. I mean, that's actually a really nice connection. Like if somebody came to me for a synastry chart, I'd say thumbs up on that, at least that part. But here comes Pluto and then Mercury, Mars. And it feels to me, and especially with Sun Mercury, like there's something a little succubusy. And I know I probably shouldn't speak ill of Erica Kirk. I've gotten in trouble for it before. But there's something a little succubusy about these aspects here. Her Pluto on his Mercury, Mars. Her Mercury on his Pluto. That's a little schemy. You know, it's kind of like when she's in line in the airport in Jerusalem and she spots him. She's married at that time, right? And she's hypergamous. So she's looking for the trade up. And she's got that moon in Aries opposing his sun. And she wants him. She gets what she wants. She totally gets what she wants. But I find it interesting that the shift literally goes from him to her, from Libra to Scorpio, and kind of ushering in this dark period. And there's still chaos around this event. I don't know how they're going to try this Tyler Robinson kid. They have no proof. They have a text message from some kind of Discord chat, and they're going to have to somehow prove that he was on the computer at that time typing that. But there's no proof. There's no forensics. They don't even have a bullet. And you can't even get a hold of the coroner's report. So it's going to be very, very difficult for them to figure out and make a case that this Tyler Robinson was the shooter. But I just thought that this was really interesting, like how this is a progression, right? From Charlie Kirk and Libra, and he represented all things Libra. I mean, he was very Libran. To now, this void that's been created, and again, with Eric Kirk, supposedly the head of TPUSA now. I'm not sure what her role is. But she is the vessel of Scorpio. She is the bearer of darkness. And the more that I think about his memorial, I don't see it as being a celebration of his life, a rousing affirmation of Charlie and his work and his heroism. It felt garish and ostentatious and completely tone deaf. Most cultures, when they lose somebody, they mourn them. They're not smiling. They're not grinning. They're not pointing up to the sky. They're not mugging for the camera. In a real life situation, Erica Kirk would have been on her knees in tears. That the man she loved, the father of their 2 children whose faces we never see, will never be coming back. That did not seem like a woman grieving or mourning or in tears. Whatever happened to a veil? Melania would have worn a veil. You know, Melania would have rocked a veil. What happened to a veil? She's out there in white, like she's fucking getting married to Donald Trump. And what's interesting is that had it been a very solemn and heavy and respectful funeral, it would have been very Scorpionic. It would have been appropriate. And it would have, in some ways, carried the seed of light. Right? It would have carried the seed of light. Even at a very dark hour like that. But this was the exact opposite. It was bright and garish and filled with fireworks. And it was dark. It was really dark. That's the end game of that. And I think it is a ritual, the whole thing, but particularly the memorial, is a ritual to usher us into greater darkness. And we're moving from Libra to Scorpio, literally on the wheel and into Erica Kirk's wheelhouse. And of course, there's many other things that go along with this. You get rid of Charlie Kirk. You suspend these. Is Steven Crowder doing this now? Is he going to go back on campuses? Right? You basically cut the groypers off at the knees because they're starting to infiltrate. They're starting to kind of change Charlie Kirk. The narrative of who the boogeyman is starting to change. Anyway, I just thought that this was really interesting. The juxtaposition between Libra and Scorpio between Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk, and ultimately what we've been left with. All right. I hope you found tonight's 2.5-hour show interesting, and that you might have learned a little bit about the sign of Libra. And as we go and pull closer into Scorpio, we'll get into Scorpio. We'll talk more about Scorpio over the next couple of weeks. And of course, there's always something out there in the wide world of astrology to hang our hats on and put under the microscope. So next week, I'll be in Frisco with David. So the Sunday night show will be taking place in Frisco. And I hope as many of you can sign up for the event as possible, because it's going to be really, really cool. And I'll talk with David, and we'll find some ways for you folks at home to be a part of the event. Maybe come in and ask questions, and so you can really feel like you're being part of it. Okay? All right. You know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to see what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thank you, mods, for doing your thing. And if you are in the market for a reading or a session, come find me. I'm still digging myself out of my post heart trauma mode, but we're getting there. We're picking away at the folks that have purchased readings. So I'm working my way back to you. All right, take care. Have a great night. God bless, and bye for now.